Okay, commissioners, you ready? Yep. It is 10 o'clock. I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. The chair notes there's a quorum present. We'll do the flag salute. Flag is right behind you on the floor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Point zero is additions and revisions to the agenda. Just got anything?
None here.
Okay. Move on to 3.0, which is correspondence and public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair, give your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. For folks who are signing in on the Zoom, if you dialed in, it is *6 to unmute yourself on your phone. You're here on your computer screen, it's the lower left-hand side. And then as usual, I like to remind folks that we are informal here. As we move through the agenda, we welcome questions, comments, and feedback on agenda items. I see Larry has something. Go ahead, Larry.
I'm Larry Johnson, the superintendent principal here at school. I just wanted to make the comment that we're moving forward on the purchase of the 2 manufactured homes that we're putting in. It's a little more of a process than I thought, but we're moving forward. And we purchased the duplex, and that's worked out really well. And we're kind of going through the details of how we as renters there pay the district. But anyway, I think it's a huge step in the right direction for us to look to the future of securing affordable housing for new teachers that will be coming in. So I just wanted to share with you, we're moving forward, and when we get, I'll be glad to share pictures when we get farther along in the process. So Mark has done a great job working with the city to make this happen. So that's good news for us. Just on a side note, our school year starts the 28th. The kids show up. This year we're a little short of bodies with our football team. It doesn't look like we're going to have a football team this year, even co-oping with Ione. We're disappointed. But on the bright side, we have an excellent girls volleyball team, and they have lots of kids out. It's going to be fun to watch them. We hired a new science teacher. We got the preschool underneath our umbrella this year. We're excited to have that program under our kind of a umbrella. So what else? Again, the building and the maintenance of we have good looking buildings and grounds. We're pleased about that. And I'm available anytime if anybody comes by, and we'll show off what we're doing at our school. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say, and to thank the county for the resources to move forward on. It's something that all of us feel very important about, and that is, finding affordable housing for people in this area, especially teachers.
Wonderful.
What duplex? Charlie Burdick's, the one that's got this really nice baby blue look to it that needs painted.
Okay.
It's previous superintendent lived there, and I was lucky to get in. There was no housing last year, so we're doing some things to kind of spruce it up, and hopefully we'll get painted here in the next year or so. But you know where that is, up in that.
It's up around, it goes around that.
Up kind of by Marks and Sean Troutman's. Yeah. So very fortunate that we are able to secure some housing. Any other questions?
No, I just want to say, thank you for being the first to step in and being an employer who's trying to address it directly. I think when we adjusted the competitive grants, that's what we had in mind, was the hope that some of our significant partners and employers would take advantage of that and move forward. So
we'll probably be back and asking again, so we can, because we're so fortunate as a district, we own lots. And so they're just sitting there empty, and this is a great combination of using our resources with the counties to reach a goal. So
yeah, I'm excited about it.
I am too.
Thank you for that.
Anyway, well, if you have nothing else, it seems like a lot going on before school starts. So
Yeah, we'll let you get back to it. Thanks for stopping by.
you bet. Thank you.
Any other public comments at this point, Catherine?
So Catherine Griner, and I'm actually asking this question from a resident of South Gilliam County, is the internet. We're getting close to the end of 2023. I know a lot of the funding, and I'm just hoping the county court is in position that rural will get the internet dollars that are coming out in 24 and 25.
So,
Take that.
do you know where we're at? I
So,
know there's been some conversations recently about how that's going, but I'm not up to speed.
so Delaney and I have both, Delaney more recently, have been going to some of the Oregon broadband outreach meetings. I think we're still a little, I think Oregon is still trying to figure out where they're gonna, like, especially so for folks who are curious, there's two strands of money that are coming in. One are remainder from ARPA dollars from COVID. And Oregon has a significant amount of those. And I think it was looking at giving those out in about $20 million chunks potentially. The initial estimate from the phase one sort of feasibility study that the county funded was that it would be about a $24 million project. And so we're sort of weighing, I think, whether to try to compete with those funds or wait until the BEAD dollars, which are the infrastructure dollars that Congress passed, that are on a longer timeline, come out. So whether to go for the whole thing or not. And the state, I think, is still trying to finalize for the BEAD dollars what the timelines for that look like. And our understanding, at least, was that was on a timeline that was several years out.
They're
correct?
just
Yeah.
wrapped up the comment period on their 5-year action plan, and then they are submitting that to the NTIA by August 28th, I believe. That's when they have
It
to- And that's for the 689 million.
It got pretty shaky with the walkout on
Mhm.
getting the rules, Oregon rules to line up with the federal rules at the end of the session. I think too was part of whether it's even gonna make it or not.
Right, so there was a bill that did pass to fix it. Oregon, it's a long
Yeah.
convoluted thing, but Oregon's legislature had passed laws that were out of compliance with the state treasury's requirements for these infrastructure dollars. So Oregon had to pass laws to bring itself into compliance so that it could even accept the infrastructure dollars. That did happen in the last session, so now they can actually go forward. This is why we're behind some of the other states, because we first had to come into compliance to even apply for the grants to come into Oregon and then be distributed to local entities. So all of this to say, though, I think we do still need to figure out what a phase two looks like. And one of the ideas that we had tossed around was maybe reaching out to Morrow County, who is on a similar trajectory, and see what we're hearing from the state is that they're now looking for regional solutions, might be prioritized higher than like a single entity. And so we may need to explore with Morrow County whether there's a partnership to be had to regionalize it. And given Columbia Basin's a major partner on both projects, that's sort of a natural tie.
And then McKen as well.
And then McKed's engaged in it as well. So I don't have a good, like, solid, here's our plan, Catherine. It's
I
still,
want to make sure it's still way up there.
it's still on there.
And then invite, I do know it's virtual and in person, but the Oregon Telecommunications Connections Conference is at the end of October and it's in Ashland. I have reservations for several of our people to go, but it is a good thing to go to.
And then as well, the Oregon Broadband Office also is doing office hours, I think the first Friday of every month, where they have like an hour to 2 where people can talk about projects they're working on, kind of get updates from Broadband Office on what is happening with those infrastructure dollars. I mean, we've talked about this before, but when we say 24 million, like, that's a lot of money, but it's a once in probably a generation investment that we're going to see come from the federal government, and maybe our only shot at making sure that folks who are living outside of our incorporated cities actually have a chance to have fiber to their homes. So I think it's necessary for us to continue pursuing it.
And the project that's ready to go is important and all that. As we go through it, we gotta spend a little money to get it ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, anything more on public comments? If not, under correspondence, I just wanted to note that we have a capital investment grant program final report from the city of Condon. This is related to streets and sidewalks around the new grade school that the county helped fund. And that project is done, looks lovely. We walk on it regularly in my neighborhood. So if you, for members of the public who would like to see that final grant report, those are always included with the court packet online, so you can see where those public dollars were invested. The other item in here is the treasurer's report. There's a revenue expense report, fund balance summary, and bank account balances through June 2023. If you would like to see those as well, they are also online as part of the court packet. Let's move into 4.0, which is the consent agenda. You guys have questions?
There was a typo in the section that I was trying to get. I don't think I still got everything in that section. We addressed it in the next meeting, so it's.
Which minute?
That would have been on the fifth minutes. Let me see if I can find it. On the section on the interim employees and the county road department and all that discussion. And in the second paragraph at the end of it, I don't know what Commissioner Shannon would like to see that be the rate that they are paid it for this summer. I think it needs to not be there, maybe.
Is this from the 26th?
No, it's July 5th.
Like that, that's in July there.
So that would be as amended then for the regular July 5th. Anything else on the consent agenda?
I don't think so.
Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Any motion maker there?
It's your day.
Sorry.
I move to accept the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as amended. This consists of consider approval of July 5th, 2023 regular meeting minutes as amended. Consider approval of July 26th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Consider approval of IGA number 13637 for weed spraying with Wheeler County, Morrow County, and ODOT. Consider approval of training support grant agreement number 22-119AC, the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. Consider approval of planning assistance grant agreement number GY-25-141 with DLCD. Consider approval of VOCA grant submittal request for the district attorney's office. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on, let's go into 5.1. Consider appointment of Kayla Roush as pro tem justice court judge.
We need to switch here.
We got to switch. Okay. We're swapping caregivers for grandkids. Chris, do you want to take it from here?
Yes, the briefing basically speaks for itself. We have a rising star with the Justice Court, and she can do so much more than what she's doing right now. And I think that the strategic plan of Gilliam County aligns with her goals and her, everything about Taylor to promote the professional development and promotion of those aspiring leaders that we have. And so Kayla attended the National Judicial College Courts of Special Jurisdiction, which is a requirement of any justice court judge who is not a law trained judge. And in order for her to act as a pro tem, which does happen rarely, but it's much more convenient to have someone locally than to rely on other justice court judges. We've had a judge from Grant County, Kathy Spinett, who has a pilot's license. She's actually flown in, and I've gone up to the airport to pick her up so she can pro tem cases. And those are conflict cases, maybe unrelated to, or we have a private business in town that creates a conflict for me. So there are a few cases where I need someone else to rely on now and then, not to mention when I have grandkids and I want to spend time with them. So, and we both know that there's been issues of coverage because of the way the justice court is structured from past discussions with the court. So I'm just trying to alleviate some of that. And if you have questions of Kayla, she has a list of what she learned at the Judicial College. I received a note from Shandy Johnson, who's the Sherman County Justice of Peace. She also attended at the same time the Judicial College. And she sent me a text during the Judicial College and said that they were highly impressed at the Judicial College with her level of knowledge for not yet being a judge. So.
Great job.
That was a nice comment. So do you
Yeah.
have questions of me?
Any questions for Judge Patton?
I would listen to your comments that you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was your
Yeah.
impression? What was your impression?
So I got something right here. So the course was a 2-week-long course that took place in the National Judicial College. Within the course, there were numerous classes ranging from criminal law and procedure to judicial writing and ethics. Each day was about, it was a full day. And each day we had an hour-long course of discussions where we broke down into smaller groups and asked questions and discussed the previous, the topic that was presented that day. And then some of the things that were talked about were here. How to make appropriate evidentiary rulings, conduct criminal hearings and trials in compliance with constitutional and statutory standards, manage cases involving unrepresented litigants, create an environment of fairness and impartiality in the courtroom, communicate effectively and appropriately in the court and with the media, sentence offenders while addressing the needs of the community, determine the applicability of the Fourth Amendment and, to automobile searches. We did search and seizure. There was, gosh, I want to say there was like 20 to 25 different classes within each day, the 2 weeks. So there was a lot of information. Came back there a little overloaded, but it was good. It was nice.
Yeah. And the one thing I noted in my briefing was that she took it upon herself to seek out and apply for and receive $1,000 scholarship. It is an expensive class, but it reduced the cost significantly for her doing that. So.
Great. Any other questions for Kayla or for Judge Patton? Do I have a motion?
So, how do you pronounce your last name?
So it's Roush.
Roush.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do it because they're going to trip over your last name.
I move to approve the appointment of Kayla Roush as the pro tem justice court judge effective August 16th, 2023 to December 31st of 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the appointment of Kayla Roush as a pro tem justice court judge effective August 16th, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Thank you for taking that on. It's wonderful. Okay, let's move on to 5.2. This is discussion regarding renewal of the IGA for the Condon Community Swimming Pool with the City of Condon. Catherine, where do you want to start? Do you want me just to do an overview that just for the public's edification? I'm sure the commissioners already know this, that we have an existing IGA between the county and the city regarding management of the Condon Community Swimming Pool. The city had the property is still owned by the school district. the city has agreed to take on the management of that in order to preserve a community resource, and the county has agreed to help provide the funding to keep it open and pay for lifeguards and some maintenance. That particular agreement is set to expire later this year on September 30th. And so purpose of today's discussion is to just talk through any potential changes, obviously make sure that we want to renew it, which was an assumption that I'm making, but let's confirm that today as well. And then any changes that we will then ask legal counsel to draft and then bring back for both the city council and the court to approve. Did I get it?
So we also have a lease that runs at the same time with the school district. Yeah, we lease the pool. And they have been, they do not want to have anything to do with it. So we tried to get some cooperation from them in the last 2 years and they refused. So I still think it's valuable to the community. We'll go ahead and keep running it at this point. What the county court needs to know is in that reimbursement, it does not take in any of my time for payroll, budgeting, does not take in Jessica's time, it does not, which she does all the AP, she does all the ordering, a lot of the ordering for the pool. She also is our safety person that goes over. And it does not take in any of the public works time, who they go in, they do quite a bit of work with the pool. And I just wanted.
So it's
people-
just the wages for the lifeguards and stuff.
Yeah, I mean. I pulled the last couple of years, and last year we did not request all the way up. But this year I pulled just the wages are almost 46,000. And they're just gonna keep going up. And to keep the kids and to keep it operating. That's what's gonna be. We have raised the rates one time, but the whole point is to keep it affordable so people will use the pool. So the rates are $60 for a family to use the pool and $30 for an individual for the pool. It's $40 for swim lessons. And those have gone down. I'm not quite sure why they've gone down. We're getting a lot of Morrow County kids, and we didn't get very many this year because they were actually looking for grants to supply it. And so I don't know exactly what's going on over there.
So first question for the commissioners, am I correct in assuming that we are on board for renewing?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, got that taken care of. And then Catherine, can you kind of speak to like where, from an expenses standpoint, because that's it, was there anything else in the agreement other than the reimbursement that
No.
we
and
felt
have
need to be
been,
addressed?
I know you guys are aware of, we have been putting in special project grants for, the boiler and all of that, but that doesn't include a lot of times the match,
Mhm,
which falls back again on the city.
mhm.
A lot of times that match, if it is up that high, the revenue doesn't cover what the match is. I mean, we've been really fortunate the last couple of years. Do I see big projects coming? That thing's gonna always have a project. Yeah.
How old is that pool?
I think it was built in I'm looking at my two county people. I think it was.
It was
built in
around when I was a kid, so.
oh, yeah.
60.
It was
1960?
before, I think it was before that.
Oh, it was probably there.
I have
Early
paperwork on that.
60s, but
I should know that.
it's as long as I can remember, and I'm gonna be 70,
So
How's
a
that?
solid 60s plus years.
60 plus.
Got it.
Yeah. And I mean,
I
it
mean,
didn't
from
take-
my first memory, it was there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have swimmers that are there at 6:30 in the morning and it gets used.
Gets used. It
There was
does.
a lot of kids, the day that I watched it, was a lot of kids in swimming lessons, which is always good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be
Seeing them learn how to swim.
It would be a big hit to the, not just Condon, but I think the broader region, to your point about Wheeler County often has buses coming in
Yeah.
of their kiddos.
Yeah, I think they just didn't coordinate as well. I don't know what went on. I mean, again, they were looking for some grants to send them. And we did, the Elks have provided swimming lesson grants too. So,
So in terms of the, one thing we could look at doing, I think the agreement, we've always structured it as a flat fee. In some of our other IGAs, we raise it and then we also put an escalator on it, 2%, 3, whatever it is annually, so that our partners aren't getting behind when they apply COLAs and other things that minimum wage went up, all those kinds of things. Which approach would you guys prefer? Would you prefer to do a flat rate and kind of estimate where it would be at the end of the?
Well, and I don't think we've raised it in years. So I mean, even if you raise the flat fee up to 70, I think that could be well and good for maybe the next couple of years. Because what we do is we do take the total expenses less our fees, the per swim lessons and all that before we give the request. So I think that would,
And then it's reimbursable. So Catherine gives us an accounting. We send the money after, or sort of as the seasons
yeah,
kind of.
I do it at the end of our fiscal year, just because that's just.
So when you put an IGA together and you have in that IGA that it's agreed to lease the pool to a certain date. You have to change that IGA when you're gonna lease it for longer than that day. I mean, you don't have a lease in September 23.
It's leased through our lease with the school or you,
Well, this is in the IGA.
I mean,
Like there's a,
Yeah,
The
it says
party
city has
should-
agreed to lease
There's
and
a clause
operate
in the
them
IGA
until,
that says the city
October
lease it
1st.
through September.
but I think that's
Yes.
with
and then
us.
we.
But then it references
Well,
at
it's
the
also
bottom,
school.
the parties
We'll
obligation
redo our-
under this
we
agreement
do
I'm
it
just saying in the
terminate
IGA,
this
once you do that,
and the
doesn't
school
match
district lease falls out.
When we actually lease it.
when you actually lease it to.
I mean, if we could put it October 1, that's when we release with the school.
Well, and we have if the number 5 in that agreement says the parties agree that the city and the Condon School District 25J, if fail to continue their underlying lease regarding the operation of the swimming pool as referenced above, the parties' obligations under this agreement will terminate. So if they don't have their lease in place, there's no obligation to the county to provide any funding.
Well, my point I was trying to make is, don't we have to renew this IGA every so often anyway to match the lease?
October 1.
So why would we do anything other than a flat rate? Why would we do an escalator? We have to do that anyway.
Could you put in an optional renewal each,
Yeah,
so you don't have to.
and we just took it down to a year with the school because of some other issues that were going on, so. I'm guessing that we might expand that.
So can it be kind of like a rolling contract where
That would be fine with us. And
every
yeah,
year, as long as everything looks, it just rolls into the next year?
so usually what we do is we will set an initial term and then we will say that it can automatically extend for, say, 2 or 3, whatever we feel comfortable with, until one or the other.
Yeah, I
terminates
guess
the
I'm more
agreement.
comfortable with staying closer to what that number should be than just putting an escalator in.
Got it. But, so,
I mean, we're gonna,
I mean, as long as there's a clause that if for some reason we reach that we can negotiate.
Yeah, because if you have an unforeseen
I mean, the chlorine goes up.
something that happens at the pool, that
Yeah,
so are you guys comfortable? So in number 2 on the current agreement says county agrees to provide funding to the city in the amount of up to, talks about what it's for. In the event operating costs contemplated by this agreement increase above, at this time, right now it's 60,000. Parties agree to renegotiate the funding to cover the disparity created by the increase. Am I hearing that we would just keep this language, but instead of 60, it would be what amount?
yeah, because according to your letter, Catherine, right, you said the total expenses were 69,000
but they
and
made
change.
about 7 on revenue. And then
So it was
they
like
had some other,
62.
Expenses of their own. I mean, it
Um,
looks like 65 was fine this year, but would make it next year, maybe? Is that what you're thinking?
I mean, I feel really comfortable and I think you could roll it for a year or 2 at 70.
Okay.
And obviously, we're not gonna bill you if we don't spend it.
Right, so the language is up to, and so Catherine will do the accounting and then we just provide.
And then we
actual
just
cost.
reimburse you for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 70, we feel comfortable with that number?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll update that.
And the lease
and the lease language. And then would you guys like the attorney to add language about it being basically automatic renewals? Is that what you guys, would you like us to add that language? Because currently,
Automatic renewals at that amount, it's fine with me.
okay.
Yeah, as long as everything's agreeable to everybody.
As long as it's not one of those that,
We're gonna-
oh, by the way, on September 30th, we find out that I just don't want to say, oh, you need to give us 180 days. You know, if we need to renegotiate or something like that, or,
Yeah,
You would
because
like
when,
to kind
you know, it renews at 70,000, and if I miss this day, it's
You-
no whether if I spend 80,000, you're still only giving me 70,000.
got it. So
I don't think that's gonna happen, assuming that this thing takes.
why don't we also, like, I'm seeing this does not have any termination or notification language in it, so why don't we ask Lori to add sort of our boilerplate, like, because right now there's not.
Yeah.
We assume that one of us could end this agreement if we chose to, but there's no language actually specifying that that's allowed. Catherine, what feels right in terms of notice for like a potential termination of an agreement? You want that up to be 180 days,
That's way too long.
90?
30.
You're just wanting out of it.
Hey, listen, I mean,
I did not say
let's make
that.
it longer.
I'm not saying-
hey, listen, the 30 day, it really
I
doesn't,
think we should even give her that.
it really doesn't harm us in that I mean, if it terminates, it just means we don't provide funding. So
And I
it's not
mean-
like we're
Yeah.
obligated
The bottom
for,
line is that we know by September 30th, the lease with the school is all a done deal. So I just want to make sure that if we have to terminate, if something happens with the school, is that it will be done. You know, we can terminate, if we find out the school's not going to renew the lease, then right then you guys know.
So do you
yeah,
have
so
your
that,
lease with them? How, what is it?
It's annually.
Oh, so every single year you have to go back to them.
so I think we would keep intact then the Article 5, which just basically says like, if for some reason the lease doesn't go through, it automatically, like we're aware and upfront, this agreement itself dissolves too.
Yeah.
And then you would just notify it, you know, probably just send Delaney and I an email and say.
I
we
think that's
didn't.
the only, I mean, obviously, if it blows up or something, then we can't operate the pool, we're not gonna operate the pool. But it would all hinge on the lease with the school.
Got it. So I don't think we need to do that because that allows right now for basically immediate termination.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
You're
If
saying
you're not-
under number 5.
Number 5.
Okay.
But I think we still should add, even if something just happens and the council decides it doesn't want to do it anymore, or the court decides it doesn't want to do it anymore, there's no termination language in here. So I think we would need to put that in as well. And for that,
I mean,
Is
you know,
that
90 days. 60
90
is
days?
Fine.
okay,
I mean,
we'll put a placeholder in and then you can think about it. And if you want to change it after, you can.
That should be fine.
Okay. Anything else we need to talk about in this particular one? If not, we will get Lori to draft an agreement and probably bring it back on consent unless you guys want to discuss it again, but since we've kind of hashed it out here.
I think we're where we need to be.
Solid, okay. So we'll get that done and back on the consent agenda and on a future meeting. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Rachel, are you there? Just want to make sure you can hear us.
Yes, I am here. Good morning.
Morning,
Morning.
okay. We're moving into your section of the agenda. So the first one is consider award of accounting software bid. And I will turn it right over to you.
Thank you. So for those of you I've not met in person, I'm Rachel Boyer. I'm the new finance director for Gilliam County. In the past 6 weeks, I've taken a pretty deep dive into the finances of the county, and I am here to ask the court to consider approval of the accounting software bid. So currently we are using a system called CHAVS. This was implemented in 2012 and it is an AS400 based system. So very similar to DOS based. Our annual spend on CHAVS is about $13,500. If we were to move accounting systems, approximately half of that is related to the accounting system. The other half relates to the justice course and likely would not disappear with this change. Throughout the 7 weeks, I have identified some limitations of this system. This is a picture of the system on the left. Some of those limitations I want to discuss just to lay the foundation for why I'm suggesting this change. First, there's limited or no access to historical data or some data changes. For example, once we run an AP batch and cut the checks, and that batch information disappears. The paper report that prints out is the only record of that batch information after we run and post that batch. And if we lose that paper report, it is not able to be regenerated. Similarly, if we delete a vendor, the entire vendor history disappears. We also have limited availability of financial information for department directors. Nathan, the treasurer, is very, very busy and has been tasked with a lot of this on his own. And so some of the data or reports that they're getting are historical, and they do not have access to real-time information of their budget to actual spending. There is also the necessity to enter data in several different places in CHAVS in order for it to function properly. Once you enter that information, there are no reports to run to verify that it has been entered accurately in both places. So you have to go back into each individual record and verify that the information has been entered accurately in both places and that you're going to be able to properly process your information. There's also no date validation. In my deep dive into CHAVS, I found a transaction entered as 9/31/21. The system did not stop that transaction from posting. And any report we would run that has the date parameters of September 9/1 through 9/30 would not pull that transaction in. And no data validation. Currently, the system has multiple duplicate vendors, and that means if we enter in the same invoice to any one of these vendors, we could pay it different times or multiple times. There's limited reporting, and the reports that come out are sometimes inaccurate. For example, we just printed a termination list the other day, and we ran the date parameters wide open to not exclude anybody from that list, and still 6 employees that had been terminated were not on the list. And with that limited reporting, we don't even have a workaround. We can't export to Excel, and we can export to PDF and then convert that PDF to Excel, but it combines a bunch of rows together. You then have to go through and sift through that data, and it's quite time consuming. And more importantly, there are multiple instances there where we are tracking financial information outside of CHAVS because we cannot get the system to do what we need it to do in order to run the county finances. Now, the limited financial data does present several risks, but most importantly, I think for our discussion today is that the limitations in CHAVS means that we're not compliant with GASB. So according to GASB, essential characteristics of accounting data are understandability, reliability, relevance, timeliness, consistency, and comparability. And as you can see with those limitations I just discussed, we do not have that in our current accounting system.
So what does GASB stand for?
Government Accounting Standards Board. So they set the standards for government accounting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Also, if we have inaccurate financial reporting, it can limit our ability to attract future grants. It can result in loss of funding for our current grants, and in a worst case scenario, some penalties. And as you know, we are about to take on the $2 million bus barn project, so accurate grant reporting is going to be very, very important to us in the near future. We examined a couple solutions. We reached out to several companies, but we are very small agency. We received bids back from 2 different accounting solutions. The first is Cassell. For Cassell, purchase and implementation is around $25,000. That includes training. And then the annual cost after that will be $18,000. We also received a quote from Tyler Technology. Purchase and implementation for Tyler is $51,000 and an annual cost of $23,000. You can see from the agenda that I'm asking for approval to implement the Cassell accounting software. Both are good solutions, but Cassell comes highly recommended from several other municipalities, and they have a reputation for excellent customer service. So I just wanted to show you quickly some functionality that will provide solutions for the county. First, we'll have timely relevant information for our directors. This is a dashboard that is included with Cassell and comes with unlimited users. So anybody we want to have access to their department's financial information, we can grant them access. This will allow for department directors to approve invoices, to submit future requested budget requests. It also allows them to have up-to-date information on their budget to actual spending. So if they click this view budget summary link, it will take them into the details of their year-to-date actual versus year-to-date budget. Year-to-date budget, excuse me. And then each of these blue numbers have drill down capability so that they can then click into each category and see exactly what expenditures have posted to that particular line item. It also produces some pretty beautiful, in my opinion, and easily understandable financial statements that we can publish for the public, as well as use as support for our grant reporting. And if for some reason we didn't like the reports, there is the ability to export to Excel. And the reports that are exported come with these beautiful graphs that detail, just give a nice little snapshot of the spending by category. And these Excel reports also have drill down capabilities. So if you were to click on any of these year-to-date amounts, you would be taken into the GL detail information for those dollar values. And this information in this report will automatically update as the data in Cassell is updated. So in summary, implementation of a new accounting system, and we'll have a timeline of 6 to 12 months. It'll bring Gilliam County into compliance with GASB. It'll reduce data redundancy and risk of financial loss and improve financial reporting to the public, auditors, directors, and funding agency. And after reviewing the functionality and future benefits of both software, it is my recommendation the county court choose the Cassell software. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Rachel?
So I went up and met with Rachel yesterday and I'm really concerned about where we're at and where we've been. I think it's critical that we move forward with this.
The city, Kevin can speak to this. When I worked at the city, we worked on it. It's a super great system. Yeah,
We've been on it for 12 years.
yeah, I can't say enough for it when I was working there, so.
And the support, like Rachel said, is excellent.
It is because of course, I had a problem because I was there in the afternoon and then I would call them and they are like in the Midwest. So in the morning, they'd call me back, but she won't have that problem. But yeah, they're super good about getting on there and they won't change anything, but they'll circle with their little red pin and tell you, click here, click here, click here. So yeah, it's great.
I would move to approve the bid from Cassell for accounting software services in the amount of $25,550 for implementation and training and an annual cost of $18,096.
I would second, but do you have any input, Nathan? No?
Nathan's shaking his head. Okay.
Okay.
You seconded, Leah?
Yep.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve the bid from Cassell for accounting software services in the amount of $25,550 for implementation and training and an annual cost of $18,096. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we still have Rachel. Next one is consider award of payroll software bid. And
right.
take it away.
All right, so our payroll is currently also processed through Shavs, and that presents some additional limitations. So we process payroll in-house, and we currently don't have any sort of automated HR solution. So what that means is that whoever processes payroll is tasked with keeping up on all the changes in Oregon labor and leave laws. They have to manually report and file all quarterly and annual reports. They track leave accrual manually. They track pay increase and steps manually. We have manual timekeeping, manual time card entry, manual anniversary date tracking, manual onboarding, and manual certification tracking. So I just want to say that every time there's manual entry or tracking of information, there's potential for error. And this error has occurred recently in the form of some incorrectly paid overtime, some leave accrual issues, some pay update errors for annual increases, and discovery that a few departments either had expired certifications that were required by their positions or no certifications at all. So I'm sure you can see the risks that are associated with that, but just to point out two items. One, improperly tracked leave costs approximately $600 per employee per year. If Gilliam County has an average of 50 employees, that is a potential loss of $30,000 per year from manually tracking our PTO. And BOLI, the Bureau of Labor and Industries for Oregon, their law requires payment for all hours worked on an individual basis, meaning we should not be rounding in any way, shape, or form, not to the nearest 5, 10, or 15 minutes. We should be paying to the minute. So Gilliam County is responsible for accurately tracking and paying employees for all time worked. So given those risks of inaccurately paying our employees and perhaps just the potential $30,000 loss in leave, we have examined some proposed solutions that will automate some of those processes for us. The first is ADP. ADP is a very well-known solution. It has very robust payroll side. They would be filing all our payroll reports for us, so we would risk share there. There's an electronic timekeeping module that is associated with this solution and some HR onboarding functionality. The second and mid-price solution is Cassell, and I'm presenting this solution because we are recommending moving to the Cassell accounting software. So we would have some nice integration there. However, payroll still would be performed in-house. This also comes with an electronic timekeeping module and some HR onboarding functionality. And then the final solution is PayPro Workforce Management. Again, here, payroll and reporting is outsourced, electronic timekeeping functionality. But this solution has full HR functionality, which I think is necessary because we do not have a full-time dedicated HR person. As we know, Miranda is the ERO, and she is also the executive assistant to the county commissioners, so her time is spread between the two. And so we, as you can see from the agenda, Miranda and I both reviewed these solutions, and our recommendation is to implement the PayPro Workforce Management software. And I'm just going to take a couple slides to show you why. So this solution also comes with a dashboard, both for employees and supervisors. Employees can see pay statements, leave accruals, and company announcements all in one location. They would sign into their dashboard and they would have that all available to them right here, as well as their year-end W-2 statements. And for your supervisors, they can approve time and leave requests here. They can track certification. They can view any missed punches or time exceptions, and they can view time worked metrics similar to these directly from that same location. The electronic timekeeping component would be via computer or mobile phone. The employees will be able to punch in. For the road department especially, they can change jobs throughout their shift so that we get accurate pay data per job. They can punch out, they can access company forms, they can make time off requests through this portal. A lot of functionality here and automation that will automatically push over into the payroll system. This solution also includes an automated onboarding process. So once we hit this higher button at the top of the screen, we would have all that employee's information pushed into the payroll system, and all key metrics such as leave accruals and salary would be tracked from that point forward by the software and completely automated. And for, of course, because I love reports, the payroll register report is clear and easily generated. It is much easier to review for accuracy and identify any potential payroll mistakes. So in summary, the implementation of the new payroll system will have a timeline of 3 to 6 months. We have a projected go live of January 1 for this solution. It would bring Gilliam County into compliance with BOLI, reduce financial loss from inaccurately paying employees or tracking leave, limit the risk of filing errors and penalties with the state and federal government, limit the risk of non-compliance for required certification, and significantly reduce the potential for errors in manually tracked and input information. And really, throughout the walkthrough of this software, it would ease the onboarding process and allow for a better overall employee experience. So after reviewing the functionality of all 3 solutions, it is my recommendation to the county court that they choose the PayPro workforce management software. And again, happy to answer any questions.
So it would be just like having a patient portal. You can go in and look at your wages and stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you would have real-time access to your pay up to the minute. So if you had your supervisor would be able to track your leave request and track that for the entire department in one place. You would be able to access your pay information and your leave information at any time.
And then I think on Miranda's side, she's really excited about, we're able to upload all of the onboarding forms that we have. You know, we have a ton of policies that we need employees to read. I think it also, correct me if I'm wrong, Rachel, but when we do a policy update and we need employees to acknowledge that they've seen that, that allows us to push it out to them all in a way that they can acknowledge and we can track that. There's just a lot of functionality on the HR side, especially, I mean, the payroll side, I think as well, but that I think will really, in terms of Miranda's sort of needing to track people, will automate a lot of stuff for her and hopefully free up some time for her to work on stuff that the commissioners want her to do and other things that that she's trying to balance.
Not
So.
even hardly in Arlington anymore because of HR.
We're trying to fix that. That's why we need a motion on this, Pat.
And I, you know, just from the HR risk factor, it's kind of a no-brainer for me. So.
I talked to my friend that works at WindWave, and she said all the WindWave guys, they all track their time on their phones.
Well,
So even if they're down in the canyon, when they come back out, if they punch it in, when they come back out, it looks up and feeds it into the.
once we get the road department trained, it really makes that a neat deal.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and I talked to Rachel and she said that administrators of the different programs can go in as needed and edit. Correct, Rachel?
So someone misses the punch or forgets to.
Yes.
clock out
Yeah,
lunch or-
forgets to
Yeah.
clock out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Because I know Chris brought up the fact that one of her deputies went out in the middle of the night. He forgot to write his overtime down and she caught it later, so.
well, I move to approve the purchase of PayPro HR payroll software in the amount of $13,013.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the purchase of the PayPro HR payroll software in the amount of $13,013. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you for that, Rachel. I think she was answering the phone, so I heard behind her. Let's move into 5.5, which is consider approval of audit services engagement letters. Delaney, do you want to take that one?
Yes, so we received notice the auditor who currently handles our accounts, Cameron Anderson, has left Barnett and Morrow. And he has created his own firm, Anderson, Boylan and Ramos. And he has, we reviewed our contract with Lori, our legal counsel, and we were able to get release letters, release reassignment letters from Barnett and Morrow, releasing our account over to the new firm. These would be terms for 1 year. So we anticipate going out for a bid process in future audits, but for the audit that needs to happen for fiscal year 2022, 2023, this will allow us to not have a hiccup in getting all of that stuff done and stick with the same auditor through that process.
Since that audit is slated to begin in a couple of weeks,
Yes.
correct? So. Questions about this? So basically, this is just allowing us to stay with Cameron, who's been working with us for several years now. Yeah. And then,
3 years, is that what you said?
and then
2019 was the first one, correct?
I believe so. And then give us some time to explore whether we stick with Cameron's firm or move to a new one for the next fiscal year. Questions, concerns?
You gonna make any motions?
I'll move.
It,
Go ahead.
you know, Rachel, I kind of talked about this too, but basically, if you weren't comfortable with going to him, we can file an extension and try to, you know, find another auditor, but it is a little late season.
And I think that's why we just got the.
Yeah, just got a year.
We're going to
instead.
just agree to do this audit, so that way we can look at that next year, but it's really not holding up the current audit
Because
process.
normally, when do you do the next agreement, like
So
after the first
we
year?
currently, our current agreement with Barnett and Morrow tied us to them through the end of June 30th, 2024. But we have Cameron has agreed to just offer us a 1-year audit with his new firm. And then that will allow us flexibility for moving forward.
So we would likely put out an RFP and look at awarding probably early 2024. So that we can get contracts in place and make sure we're on that auditor's schedule for.
It might be due to rotate auditors anyway.
Yeah, it's a good thing to,
Yeah, they find different stuff, or it looks differently.
yeah. I move to approve the release assignment notices from Barnett and Morrow PC and authorize the county judge to finalize and execute engagement letters with Anderson, Boylan, Ramus PC for fiscal year 2022, 2023 audit services for Gilliam County and the Gilliam County Fair Board.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the release assignment notices from Barnett and Morrow PC and authorize the county judge to finalize and execute engagement letters with Anderson, Boylan, Ramos PC for fiscal year 2022, 2023 audit services for Gilliam County and the Gilliam County Fair Board. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
No wonder you didn't want to read that one.
Yeah, it was a long one. 5.6 is consider approval of IGA for library services with Condon School District. So I will take this one. So our librarian, Mary Reeser, also is serving as a part-time librarian for the Condon School District. And what we're finding is that those two roles are often overlapping. So for example, Mary may talk to a kid while she's up at the school. They may ask her to look up something, find a book for her, but she's technically on county time. And so which entity is picking up the cost for those librarian services has been kind of murky. And so in order to just provide some clarity, and also because during the last budget committee sort of meetings, we talked about for some of these departments who are outside of the general fund, how do we bring in new revenue? I approached the superintendent, Brian Schimmel, about a potential partnership between Gilliam County and the school district for library services. He was supportive of that. And so we together put together a proposed IGA. Basically what I'll summarize it. The county would be providing the school district with about 10 hours of library services per week for an annual fee of just shy of $9,000, $8,965. And that would then alleviate all the confusion about which entity Mary's billing her time against. And so she would obviously just be tracking time for us as our employee. And then the initial term of the agreement is 1 year. It would automatically renew for 2-year terms thereafter. We also have a fee escalator in there of 3% to help offset COLAs and other things that that we would be potentially authorizing for Mary's time. The agreement that you have was drafted by our legal counsel, has been reviewed by her. Superintendent Schimmel has reviewed the language, has signed off on it. And the school district board would consider it during its meeting, I believe next week, the 23rd. Any questions about that or concerns?
Makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement for library services with the Common School District as presented.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the intergovernmental agreement for library services with the Condon School District as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, do we have Jeff on here?
He should be on shortly.
Okay, so we're just gonna, I'll just sort of slow walk this while Jeff's getting on. So next one is 5.7, which is an update regarding county capital projects. We'll have Jeff Schott with Pillar Consulting joining us momentarily. Basically, what we're gonna do today is talk through 3 pending projects that are coming up in the upcoming fiscal year. First one being the Gilliam County Fairgrounds Event Center and Fair Office. So the Fair Board, Leah can speak to this a little bit more, but I'll just preview it, is finalizing plans for the event center and the new fair office. This is really an opportunity for the court members to kind of hear directly from Jeff, talk about the plans that the Fair Board has come up with. Also have an opportunity for the public to provide any feedback. And I think the intention is for this project to go out to bid later this fall. Is that right, Leah?
I think so, because I think they're looking at maybe construction starting in the springtime. Yeah.
And then just for the public's edification, the bulk of the funds for this project, about $1.3 million, were provided via grants to us from the state of Oregon. Specifically, there was an earmark in the in a legislative bill, and then an additional grant program that the Fair Board went and applied for.
Also, I might note to Pat that the office area will house the OSU, so the extension, so there'll be that
so when you say office area, is that in the event center?
No,
So to replace the trailer.
Oh, okay.
it'll be where the trailer's sitting at.
So it's going to be a stick-built office facility.
I don't know if it's stick-built or it's kind of a modular. Jeff can speak to that more, but, and then we talked to Sabrina about the potential of the mill site being able to use the event center for mill site on Thursdays too, so.
It's a mill.
Meal.
So Jeff just joined us. Jeff, I kicked us off with just giving some broad strokes background on the Fairgrounds Event Center and the Fair Office project.
Okay.
And Leah kind of was chiming in on some of the joint usage with OSU being co-located at the office, and then possibly the senior meal site using the kitchen that's slated for the event center. Do you, Pat, what would be helpful? Because I'm aware of the project, I know Leah is, so you're probably the only one who's in the dark, if you are in the dark at all.
Well, I don't know that I'm in the dark and completely, but just a brief rundown.
Do you want to just do a broad strokes overview, Jeff, of what the event center, what the sort of big vision is for the event center and then the office.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Can,
Okay, good. So the event center itself is about a 3,000 square foot building. It's going to have a kitchen in there that kind of serves two roles. One is so that you could prepare food or you could have a catered meal for the event center, and also for the 4-H cooking activities during the fair and otherwise that can be used also for that purpose. And then right now it's basically broken into 2 meeting rooms that I'm going to say roughly, 100 people in both of them that we can split in half. So there's 2 meeting rooms. And then there's some restroom facilities, and it's located on the very west end of the existing exhibit hall. So we're going to get rid of the old kitchen that's hanging off the end of the exhibit hall. And then this new event center is going to go right next to that. And then it's, as it stands today, it has some big open head doors that open out to the west. And the vision is there's actually going to be kind of a part of an old, Butler style granary out there on the site. And then, so that's the event center portion of it. And then it sounds like we may be adding a windmill to the site too. It's just part of we'll call that decoration.
Landscaping.
Yes, landscaping is part of our landscaping, vertical landscaping. And then we're talking about putting it, at this point, we're thinking it's going to be a modular unit. We've revised the sides a little bit that will serve for the OSU 4-H extension or OSU extension offices / the fair office as well. And it's likely to be where it will be where the existing trailer is. The existing trailer's kind of reached the end of its, it has some issues. And so this is to replace that. But it's likely to be a modular unit, or at least that's what we're looking at. So it would probably be built off-site and then brought on, and the on-site work would be foundations for that. So the plan for these projects is to go into construction next year on it. From a bidding permitting standpoint, this one actually is kind of the last one because it's the most complicated. And there's been some changes made to it in terms of the scope, adding potentially the senior meals to it, and the windmill and some other things. So that's kind of the last one that I would talk about. Right now we're planning on putting that out for bid in the December-January timeline. We've got a bunch of work to do on it before then, but I feel like the scope's pretty well pinned down on it. Any questions about that?
questions about that?
No.
Okay.
Any, for the public, any questions or input?
How many square feet is the office facility are we looking at?
What's that?
How many square feet in the office facility?
Oh, I'm going to say 1,500 to 2,000 right now. I think right now we had it at 15, and I feel like we need to add a bay onto it. So.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Go ahead. Caitlin.
In terms of this work on the event center, are you looking at renewable energy tax credits in terms of like helping with some of the costs? Or incorporating some of that? I think there's some opportunities in terms of HVAC, conservation measures, if you were to use any kind of renewable energy.
You listening to that, Jeff?
Can you hear that, Jeff?
I am. Yeah, I can hear that. Actually, at this point, there have not been a lot of explicit discussions around that. So one of the things that's happened with those tax credits, there are some things that we could add to the building. The way it's oriented right now, it actually doesn't work out super well for solar on the event center. Potentially it could on the office building. One of the things that's gotten a little bit more difficult is because the building code and the energy code specifically has gotten tighter and tighter and tighter. There's the differential between what the energy code requires and where we have to end up to get any energy tax credits on that. We've gotten tighter and tighter and tighter. So I'm not sure what we're going to be able to gain there. I would be welcome if there's some people have some information about if there was some meaningful savings to be made by making some changes on that. I would certainly entertain those ideas, but at this point, that hasn't been one of the primary focuses of the design.
Yeah, that's just my kind of
my thing that I tell everybody all the time is like, let's look at those because, not only is there a generous tax credit that's now available to governments and nonprofits, but also you'd be looking at longer term energy savings. So, and I don't know of any examples. I just know that it feels like this is something we were able to get Ron was able to get in the Inflation Reduction Act. And a lot of the benefits seem to be going to the southern states,
Oh,
which is really, I want more in Oregon.
Jeff, for context, that's Kathleen with Senator Wyden's
Okay,
office.
now I recognize Kathleen. Okay,
Yeah, sorry about that, Jeff.
all right.
Other questions or input on this particular project? We have a few more to go through. Go ahead,
So,
Catherine.
Really quick is I did have a discussion with Chris Fitz a while back, and I just want to make sure that we're including this in our visioning sessions that are starting next month. And just to make sure that we can include the fair boards moving forward in the vision for Condon. So ask that we cooperate together and maybe work together to see what you guys are envisioning so we can put it in our whole Condon visioning.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, next project on the docket is the Gilliam County Public Transportation Bus Barn.
It's on the same map. Just so you guys.
Yeah,
It's on the same map.
on the same map, commissioners. So I'll do the high level overview and then Jeff, we can maybe do this one together. So we did initial site plans and drawings for the bus barn. This is slated to be located on the north side of Airport Road. So across Airport Road from the fairgrounds. I think at least for today, really, this is just kind of updating the county court on where we've sort of landed on location, which has been a conversation that was in collaboration with the Fair Board. So the Fair Board is aware of where this proposed new building would be. And then also, of course, give the public an opportunity to sort of follow along what we're doing. Couple of things. One, I am planning on serving as the lead for the county on that project and working with Jed because Leah's got, I think, her hands full between public health and just helping the transportation department run and the event center and all of this stuff. So I'll raise my hand for that and we'll commit to providing regular updates sort of as we move through this process. The other thing, just for folks saying, look at all of these projects Gilliam County is funding. We are actually received a $1.65 million grant from the state to fund this particular one. There is a 25% match that the county is on obligated to. But for a $2 million project is, I think, probably well worth that investment from the county. So Jeff, do you want to just walk through kind of where we landed on where it's going to be located? The commissioners have the drawing of the site plan, which was the one we agreed to with the Fair Board members.
Option 4.
Option 4.
Yep. Okay, so it's going to be located on the north side, really kind of right across from the exhibit hall. So across the street from the new event center. The building actually skewed a little bit to the east. And then there'll be a parking area associated really with the event center that'll be on the, I guess, the west side of the new bus barn facility. So on that one, that's actually in Gilliam County right now, or that's Gilliam County. It's outside the city limits, but it's in the urban growth boundary. So one of the things on that, originally we talked about trying to annex that into the city so we'd have access to city sewer. However, the issue with accessing city sewers, it's going to be a pretty long run down Highway 206 from there to the connection of the manhole that's kind of in front of Amit's house down there. And that's a pretty significant cost impact. So we're looking at seeing about whether we can keep that in the county and not have it in the city and maybe do on-site sewer on it. The issue is that we have to revise the zoning because it's not currently zoned for that, but I think it's consistent with the comprehensive plan to have it where it is. As far as the rest of the design goes, it's probably the simplest one of the projects. We're actually pretty well done. We've done a lot of the structural work on the building, and the A sheets we're working on. I need to get with Liz and Delaney and look at the kind of how the floor plan is going to be on it. But it's a relatively straightforward project. It's about a 5,000 square foot. We're going to go with a wood frame building because we think that's the most economical way to pursue this. There's about a 900 square foot office, and then the bays are just under 5,000 square feet. That's kind of a magic number to keep us out of some fire sprinkler issues with that particular building. And so, bid time on that's actually probably likely to be the first one that's ready to go out for bid, other than the planning issues on it. But the construction time, all of these three projects that we're going to, the fair project, the bus barn, and then the early learning center that we're not going to talk about, we're going to talk about next. They're going to probably go out for bids at slightly different times. However, I'd kind of like to put the early learning center and the bus barn out at the same time, even though they're not proximate to each other, just because it's efficient to do that separate projects. They're likely to go out first, but all of this stuff would be construction that we're planning on next spring. And I think the biggest issue right now for this that we have to sort out is really the planning issue about how we handle that, whether we pursue annexing into the city or whether we keep that in the county and we're able to change the zoning to make that work.
Questions on bus barn?
Well explained.
We're gonna have a lot.
Question. How
Go
many
ahead.
vehicles are gonna be able to be
Yeah,
stored
how many-
in 5,000 square feet?
It's going to depend. 10 to 12 is what it's laid out right now at. And it depends a little bit on the length of the vehicle because it's going to have pull-through bays in it. We can actually do that on this. So, theoretically, you could have as many 6 long vehicles, but a lot of the vehicles are shorter. So there's a trade-off there, and we may eliminate a door on one of the bays so that we can increase the storage in it. So that's why I would go from saying 10 to 12.
5,000, the limit on the sprinkler system.
Well, so what the issue for the sprinkler system on this building is, normally buildings that are less than 10,000 square feet, with a few exceptions, you can avoid a sprinkler system in. The event center is more of a challenge than this, but there's a rule that says if you have a building for storing commercial buildings that's over 5,000 square feet, that triggers a requirement for a sprinkler system in it. And so that's where and it turns out that's kind of what we were planning on, and it fits well on the site. So it's not a hard thing for us to do. It worked out well for us.
Questions on this particular project? Any input folks have about it? It's really exciting. Condon's gonna be construction city next spring. Speaking of which, just a brief update on the early learning center status. The court, as Jeff, you probably already knew this, the court approved $1 million grant last meeting. Because Jeff is managing that project too, and hopefully we may have a contractor that wants to do all of them and gives us a nice price for it. But do you want to just briefly touch on, Jeff, where that project is, just for the court's edification, since you're managing that project as well?
Yeah, sure. So we went through land use planning. Gosh, when was that? A month or two ago? I think it was in June or early July, lost track. So on that project, we've done a lot of the structural. We still have some work to do on the A sheets on the internal, I guess the interior stuff. The structure is largely done. For all of these projects, a few weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had a geotechnical investigation done for the early learning center, the event center, and for the bus barn. And so one of the things on the structure, we're waiting for information back on that. We have to make a couple of revisions on our civil design on that, but I think that one's likely to go out for bid in probably the December timeframe. It's going to be probably a little bit later than the bus barn and the bus barn and the early learning center probably November, December timeframe, and then the
Event center.
the event center is going to be after that. So, and I would like to kind of pair those two to at least pair two of them together just to make it more efficient for the bidding process.
Haley and I are actively chasing funds for the rest of the $1 million, but we need to close the gap. So we spoke to some funders this week already, both of which we're very excited to fund. Mark Family Foundation we are talking to, and Roundhouse Foundation are excited, and there's some others that are out there. We also potentially have another bite at the apple. I will maybe put a call out to our community members that we were the only county last legislative session to not receive an earmark from the legislature. You happen to see one of our legislators, it would be helpful to remind them that we are here and that we have an early learning center expansion project on the docket that would make us the first county in the state of Oregon to come out of the childcare desert. It's really important that we get funding for this. So spread the word if you see folks who are in a position to move some of that funding in our direction in the short session. Okay, I'm off my soapbox on that one. Last project.
And when is the short session?
It will start in February of 2024. It's only a month long. And so we'll have to sort of scramble to see if we can get in there. But the timing should still work for having those funds released in time for the construction.
Since we talked with the meeting of both appropriations in the short session.
So when Catherine and I actually were at a housing or at the economic, and Judd was there too, the three of us, and they had a legislative panel. One of our county colleagues from Union County stood up and asked about a project that Union County had wanted funded that missed out on funding. And I believe it was the chair of the appropriations committee said, we're open to projects in the short session. So
So can you get that all the contact information and maybe a few talking points, just so that I can just have an immediate thing to shoot out to my counselors?
absolutely. Yes.
And is it just our representative, or is it our representative and our senator?
So I would do both. They, I believe, are both sitting. I mean, Representative Smith's a co-chair, but I think Senator Hansel is on the committee as well. So I'm sure it was an oversight that Gilliam County got left out, but it feels a little like if the other 35
We're in
counties.
the middle of the alphabet.
Yeah, the other 35 counties can get appropriations earmarks. Gilliam County should not be left out. So, so we'll go talk to them and give them an opportunity to remedy that. Anyway, okay, now I'm officially off the soapbox. Last project is to dig into the courthouse ADA renovation project. So I'll just do the broad strokes overview. What we're looking at is renovating all 5 of the bathrooms in the courthouse to make them ADA compliant. This came out of a request from Oregon DMV because they need for us to have a ADA accessible bathroom on the floor that they are operating out of, which is the bottom floor. We do not have an ADA bathroom down there, and we don't have an office space on the upstairs to move them into. So this original project generated from our desire to keep DMV services in Condon. But since we have construction crews in anyway, we decided that we would do all 5 and then also look at some changes to the county court's office space to improve some functionality. The other thing that this was kind of a last minute change, but I am also proposing that we take the current open conference room area, now that we have an actual downstairs conference room, and convert that into an office. So we would put Rachel in there as the finance director. In Miranda's current office, that would be made a little bit bigger, and we would actually make that into 2 offices. One would be Miranda's, the other would be a workspace for you 2 commissioners if you need a spot to meet with people or whatever, meet with staff. And then for the interns that we have working in the building to work out of. What that does is it removes the waiting area for DMV. So what we are talking about with DMV is actually moving them to the current planning department office. And the reason I like that solution is there's a side door from Michelle's office into the conference room. So we can have DMV people sitting in the conference room, waiting for their turn. They can actually come through the side door into DMV office and then out to the hallway when they're done with their business. And then that way they're not sitting in the middle of county staff who are trying
For
to,
permanent location.
so that would be their permanent
I mean, it don't
location.
make sense.
And then Michelle's office would be moved to the DMV office, so she's down with the rest of the team.
Which makes sense too.
So that's the proposal, which I was kind of a curveball for Jeff, so I'm sure they're trying to scramble and get that all worked out. Obviously, because we are
So do
tearing,
they have a bunch of requirements at the DMV that would have to be?
they have space requirements because they need to be able to take pictures and do some other stuff for people getting their licenses. They also are very protective of their space for security reasons. And so we have to really coordinate with them in terms of contractors being in and out of their area. And then they have some specific technological needs. For instance, they're not on our network in there. So moving them is going to just mean some reconfiguration of their internet access and where it's coming from in the building. So it's roughly the same office space. So I'm not concerned about that. It's just getting all the logistics with them sort of nailed down and making sure that we're on the same page to move forward. Okay, so related to this, and this is the spot that I need some feedback on. Obviously, there's going to be some disruption to county government while we're tearing out all the bathrooms. So what we have discussed is, and this came at the request of the circuit court, was looking at bringing in heated restroom trailers. Keep in mind, again, we're going to be doing this in January, probably December, January, February timeframe. So we're looking at bringing in some heated restroom trailers, parking them in the back parking lot. We have really two options for handling the waste from those. One is to do self-contained holding tanks where we have a vendor come in and service them regularly. The other option is connecting to the City of Condon's systems. And so one, I wanted input on the office space change that I just mentioned. It sounds like we're on the right track. Two is to get a sense, you have, or Delaney just passed out a briefing from Daryl regarding the trailers and sort of the cost estimate for the trailer and then the potential cost if they were self-contained and being serviced. And I need some feedback on whether you want to do the self-contained option, or maybe Jeff can you speak to a little bit the sewer, the connection to the city services option?
Sure. There's on the west side of the building, there's a sanitary sewer line that runs on the west side of the courthouse. Currently, all of the sewer for the courthouse goes to the northeast. So one of the options we have is to extend that sewer line and hook it up to the temporary trailers. I actually think that makes some sense, both in the short term and the long term. I don't think cost-wise it's going to be a lot different. It may be a little, actually in the end, a little less expensive to put in the permanent line. Looking at the numbers, the last numbers that I saw for Daryl for bringing in the temporary holding tanks plus the servicing of those tanks over, a period of a couple of months, 2 or 3 months. I think it's a more reliable system, especially in the wintertime. But in the long term as well, if the way that the courthouse's sewer is set up, the drain from it was not in great shape. It was not great the way that it started. So I feel like if there was ever any work done, if we had to do something in the boiler room, we might want to look at pumping that material out, and then we would have a sewer connection on the west side of the building to utilize for that as well. So I think long term it makes some sense to put it there. And I think it's probably going to be as cost effective or more cost effective to do that rather than those tanks, because those tanks were fairly expensive, as I recall the last time that I looked at them. So And we're only talking about having to run like 70 feet of sewer pipe there, and it can be relatively shallow.
Would we still need the fresh water holding tank portion of that? For the.
I think we could do one of two things on that. We could either use a freshwater holding tank on it, or we could potentially run a pipe or a line, temporary line from the building. I think probably maybe through the boiler room and put a, we'd have to put a heat tape on it to freeze protect it. So freeze protection is going to be an issue in all cases. And I think we're also going to have to bring power from the boiler room as well for those.
Do that overhead.
Either that or we'd run it on a cable on the ground with a, you know, like a sawhorse over it or something off to the side. We might shut off the sidewalk for a while when we did that. A big
So-
extension cord, think of it that way.
I think Daryl is working on getting bids for the electrical work that this will require.
Yeah, so Daryl, that would be an additional cost to do the electrical, sort of making sure that we can make that connection. So I'm looking.
So the
possibly
one
for
was
2
like
things from you guys.
19,000 is for 5 months, and then the 2,700 is times 5 months, right? Is that what?
Yes.
I'm reading?
Yeah, so the first bid is
14,000.
the actual trailers. So those really, unless we are deciding we're instead gonna just disperse people, they can work from home or they can find alternative workspace. We're gonna need a bathroom solution for that many people. So if you guys feel comfortable, I would like to be able to move forward with getting those secured at least. So there's motion language for, and that's the Will Scott Mobile Mini Solutions. Daryl asked for several bids, as you'll see in the briefing. And this seems to be the most, the best fit for what we're looking for.
Okay, so I get it finally. So this would be an additional,
Yeah, so the
Correct.
big
They had the-
implementation would be
if
doing
they
the
can't-
service. Yeah.
they can't add it to the sewer and the water from the courthouse.
Correct.
We would be,
So the first one is just the trailer,
Okay.
like them parking it, and then the actual
It's-
connection
the light
is the
bulb is
next
coming on.
thing. Yeah,
Okay, you got it.
so I would need a motion on just the trailer portion and then some feedback on connect to the sewer or do the self-contained option.
I move to accept the bid from Will Scott Mobile Mini Solutions in the amount of up to $19,656.18 for temporary restrooms for the courthouse ADA renovation project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the bid from Will Scott Mobile Mini Solutions in the amount of up to $19,656.18 for temporary restrooms for the courthouse ADA renovation project. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Aye, any opposed? Motion carries. And then the next thing is self-contained or sewer.
I'm with, putting in the sewer and the water from the courthouse.
it's $2,700 a month, is a lot.
Well, it'll be somewhat, there'll be some expense. I go with Jeff's recommendation.
Okay, we actually don't need a motion because I think we'll probably wrap that. Don't you think, Jeff, probably wrap that as part of the entire project?
Yeah, I guess I'm not muted. Yes, I think we could wrap that in as part of the project. In fact, that's what I would be inclined to do on that, is that the county would supply the trailers and then the setup and the power we could wrap into the main project cost would be, I think, a straightforward way to do that.
Okay. So all I needed was consensus on which direction you wanted to move, so we'll move forward on getting that. And then, Jeff, are we still thinking this will go out for bid pretty soon and then construction in November,
September,
December?
and then I think we'd like to put this out for bid in September, mid-September, and then so it'd be probably approval in October for the court in all likelihood, sometime in there, and then that would set our construction date, start date sometime between the 1st of December and the 1st of January. That's getting into to kind of some crummy weather. So there's a few things we might want to set up on that. But, speaking of the project, I think we've already talked about, we looked at trying to stagger the bathrooms so we didn't have to do this, but it was going to make the project longer and more miserable, I think, for everybody at the courthouse. So I think this is a good way to go about executing the project. And that way everything's going to be tore up at once, and hopefully we can compress the schedule and be back in business after a few months.
Rip off the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Any final questions, feedback on that?
Well, I
one,
just
Tiffany?
wondering, where are we at with the industrial park project?
Yeah. That one has slid, Pat.
I figured it had.
Yeah, that one has slid. So we started that project, and we did get survey information, and we were also looking at, there was a couple other issues down there on that. What I would like to do, if we can still do it, is after we kind of get these other projects going, is hop back on that project, because we're not going to get it done this fall, and then that way it could be another one that we could do mid next spring, something like that, to start that project.
And for folks who are wondering, that's about extending utility lines to parts of the Shuttler Station Industrial Park.
Road.
Yeah, that currently don't have them. So, and then we also have water rights for a well that we need to develop. So we need to get that moving as well. So still in the hopper, Pat.
Keeping it there.
Yeah, we'll keep it there.
Any other questions or feedback on any of these projects for the court or for Jeff while we have him?
Hi, Judge Farrar Campbell. This is Jen Hall. I'm the Court Operations Associate for the Circuit Court here at the courthouse. And I was looking over the design for the remodel for the ADA bathroom and jury room by the Circuit Court. And some things that I just briefly chatted along with Ryan Beach, the TCA for our district, is just before any final decisions are made on measurements and stuff in the jury room, because it's a very small space as it is, and we have to use part of that space for storage for chairs. I noticed you guys are moving the kitchen out into the jury room, which is going to take a small space away from where like the chairs are stacked. Ryan just wanted to specify, like, can we make sure that there's space between the counter and the wall where we can at least have 2 stacks of chairs, and then in the counter cabinet area, whatever is going to be built, maybe implementing the small refrigerator going underneath or by the sink, or some little cutout area in there. Those were our suggestions for that area.
Okay, why don't we, Jeff, or I'll ask Delaney maybe to put you on an email with Ryan and Jen, and then you can talk through those specific things as you're kind of finalizing the plans.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any other feedback on this piece? If not, we'll move on to the next thing, which is announcements and next meeting. Next meeting is going to be September 6th. We will be back in Condon that day. Pat, what do you have going on?
Well, I've been kind of on the roads, and meetings I've been on a cell phone driving on, setting up barriers at rodeos.
You haven't gotten run over again?
I have not gotten run over for
Okay, good.
11 performances,
Woohoo!
but yeah, they canceled the Norcore meeting this month. Cree had a executive board meeting and a board meeting on last Friday that I attended while in on-call on the phone, and OAC membership meeting was Monday prior to that. Same stuff.
Leah?
So I am going to, Daleen and I are going to meet with a guy from OHA on next Tuesday and tour him around the little facility. And then I have, on the 25th, I have a Capco meeting in Pendleton that I'm gonna go to again, so they have to look at my face. And other than that, it's in public health and more public health.
And transportation.
Transportation.
Yeah.
We're gearing up for the site review for transportation.
Yes,
ODOT will
that'll be a big one.
out to see us in about a month-ish. Okay, so for me, let's see, I attended the Eastern Oregon Economic Summit in LeGrand. Now, was it really 2 weeks ago? Yes, it was. Jed was there, Catherine was there. The first day I actually did a housing tour of some of the projects that are happening in LeGrand. I still keep hearing from a lot of people that they're looking at community land trusts as a potential viable option for affordable home ownership. And also met the builder of cottage clusters that they're doing in several communities. There's one in LeGrand for veterans, but he's also doing some work, I think, in Baker County, Malheur.
I think, is that the guy that?
Yeah,
Spoke
GCT
it.
construction.
And so there's an interesting, the price point of those, if you combine them with a land trust model, could actually, I think, be viable and not just creating rentals, but actually giving folks a pathway to home ownership, which I am not discounting the need for rentals, but I also think, like, if you look at what moves people out of poverty, being able to have your monthly rental payment actually going towards a mortgage and being able to receive that back when you sell your property is much more effective in terms of helping families move out of poverty. So if we can figure out a way to crack that code, I think, and potentially talk to some partners, the port or the city that have considerable tracts of land, that may be a potential option. That would require us setting up a nonprofit to do that. Wallowa County, there were some folks from there who are also exploring that same thing. So we may be able to navigate it together and see how you do this. So anyway, I am gonna still be pursuing it and maybe coming back to you guys with, here's what I think might work, at least on this sector of it's not gonna sort of do all of the housing. We'll just want to make that clear. But it may be a potential option for some of our young professionals that are moving in that don't have, most of these cottage clusters are a single bedroom, for instance. So seeing if we can maybe create some housing for some of our dispatchers, perhaps some of our young teachers that are coming in without needing more space for a family, bachelors that may be working out at waste management, those kinds of things. So I want to explore that a little bit more. Yeah, Catherine.
On that point, you know, when you're talking about land trusts and all of cottage clusters, I know we had like a housing gathering workshop or work session one time before. I would suggest that possibly we get the city of Arlington, city of Condon, and Gilliam County and have our planner, Kurt Batlin, have a presentation about what land trust means, what cottage cluster means, what the code is in Condon, what the code is in Arlington to allow what types of housing. And then maybe we can, I just think we hear them thrown out a lot, but if we could get someone to actually put it all together for us and then have a countywide meeting, that would be really, really helpful.
And I think there's also, if I was doing some of my research, I think there's also an organization that actually provides support to land trusts across the West. And I wonder if maybe they might have some subject matter expertise that can just do a basic, here's what a land trust model actually looks like. Here's how it functions.
Adam Hass's partner is, or what is it? Proud Ground. And we could probably get her involved too.
To come talk.
Yeah.
That, I think that would be helpful because that was kind of confusing to me about how that actually works and why it's potentially an affordable option. So I think at some point we're due for another quarterly meeting. So maybe that's the subject of the quarterly meeting, is just to focus in on housing.
That's a good idea because it's been a while.
Yeah.
Can I ask, have you done a housing study for the whole county?
Oh, yeah.
Right, so you have that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Mike Falquist did the work for the planning city of LaGrande for the veterans cottages. Has a pretty good roadmap. So I think there's a lot of folks out there that. I mean, there's the land trust and then there's also the planning side.
Mhm. Did you catch the name?
I'll get it. for time. Thank you. I just
Um,
sat back and admired the process.
Yeah.
It was very much like, how do you make this happen?
Yeah. And the developer is very dynamic. The entire housing tour, I think, what, 70% of the projects he had a hand in probably that we went and saw. So,
We just did a partnership too with the school district.
yeah. Yeah, so they're partnering with the Grand High School on doing some construction trades and developing housing for the hospital. There's some cool stuff happening that we can steal some good ideas from, I think. Let me see what else is going on. So next Thursday, we are going to have our Rocket 2.0 meeting. We had one slated for late July, and we ended up having most of the participants have scheduling conflicts come up. So we decided to combine it into one conversation. There's going to be two goals. One is to really cement the pathway for early educator workforce development. So looking at the OIC program and the changes we made, how do we solidify a pathway that starts from really middle school onto high school graduate on for those youth who are saying this might be a potential career path? How do we get them hands-on experience? How do we get them training, things like that, that if they continue to say this is a career path, that we're kind of funneling them in and then hopefully turning them into teachers in our early learning centers. And then the other part of the conversation will be about how to really engage local employers about becoming, one, supporting early education, and how to look internally about other ways that they can support employees who have young families. So not just looking at how do we make sure the centers are up and running, but also are there internal policies that even the littlest guy on Main Street might be able to consider. And, you know, everything from having a homework table set up for kids to come who don't have after school care to actually, you know, subsidizing childcare for their employees as a benefit. So I'm hoping we'll get some good work product out of both of those discussions, and that will sort of blend into this early learning roadmap that is part of our strategic planning goals. And I think, are those the big ones?
We received our official redesignation notice for the Gilliam County Enterprise Zone. So that was nice to get in the email.
Good work, Delaney, and also Michelle, just a shout out, did a lot of the, Delaney was submitting the application and Michelle was running down all the little parts and pieces that needed to be for a complete application. So together, the two of them did it with our other partners. So that was nice to see. And I think, is that all we've got?
Mike MacArthur's SIP's presentation, he said he was open all of August except for the week of the 21st, and it's that week after is going to be busy with fair coming up and everything. I'm thinking I sent him a text to find out when he's available in September. You and I need to stay on that one, Delaney, so we can get that scheduled, because it's going to take a little bit to schedule that with the other taxing districts.
So here's a question. Do you want to pair it with the quarterly housing meeting?
I think it's going to work better if we do it in
Two
the
separate
evening.
ones. Okay, an evening one. Okay.
And it's really a different subject when you, I mean,
Oh, it absolutely is, but I just
I
thought,
mean, it's, yeah, I just think there may be a lot of questions around that he could help answer taxing districts and help inform everybody.
okay, so next, no more announcements. Any
I'm
announcements?
gonna plug the county fair.
Go ahead, you're a fair board member.
So the county fair starts on the 30th. Well, exhibits come in on the 30th, starts on the 1st.
All of the
Yeah.
information is up on the Gilliam County website. and
Yep.
the fair-
With the link that people, if they want to register
the online
exhibits, so.
Fair book, coloring page, arena event registration, all of the good things.
Fun
See you
times.
Wednesday through Friday and then headed to 8 o'clock.
Okay, so we are gonna actually move into, we have an executive session scheduled, just for the public's edification. We will not be making any decisions coming out of the executive session. So you're welcome to hang around and watch us adjourn, but that's all, literally all we're gonna do when we come back.
And it'll be in the next room.
It'll be in the next room, yeah, so you guys don't have to move, we're gonna just go next door. We'll move into executive session in accordance with ORS 192.6002D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Designated staff will be allowed to attend the executive session, which will be held across the hallway. All other members of the audience are asked to remain here in this room and also in the virtual meeting room if you would like, while the court reconvenes in a private virtual room and meeting room across the hall. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or anything said about these subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we return to the audience in the public meeting room, including on the Zoom. Again, we are not anticipating any decisions coming out of it. So if you would like to not have to wait around for us, feel free. You are not going to miss anything other than us just formally adjourning the meeting. The court is back in session and we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
So 12:20.